Welcome to Brainstorm MTG. I'm ELD, and this is Fast Effect Double Speed Magic the Gathering. Ben starting out rather quickly with his Slow Depths deck. Mox Diamond into Dark Confidant, along with Urborg, threatens a very early Merit Lage token here. Vampire Hexmage could combo with Dark Depths to create a 20/20 on the very next turn. That's going to be a lot to deal with for Blue-Red Delver, which may not have any answers to it main deck. Tony grabbing an Altered Island. Keeping it basic. He sees that Wasteland was discarded. 2 Mox Diamond, perhaps signaling that he has more. Dark Depths. And do we have a Hexmage? We have Sylvan Scrying. That's going to go get the Thespian stage. So just one more turn, and Delver is going to be facing down a 20/20 Merit Lage token. Can he find the Wasteland? That is probably one of the only ways that he can delay this. Now, that is it there for Tony, packing it in, and Ben picking up a quick game 1. Wasteland, one of the most important cards here, most likely on both sides of the table. So for Tony, Wasteland is going to prevent Dark Depths from being able to combo off. If Ben does go for the combo, Tony's going to be able to allow the Legend Rule to resolve, and then Wasteland the Thespian stage, which is now copying Dark Depths, essentially getting a 2-for-1, or quite literally getting a 2-for-1, and stopping the combo. So very, very difficult to play through Wasteland for Ben, unless he has a Wasteland of his own. In that case, he can actually Wasteland targeting Tony's Wasteland, and then Tony will have no choice but to fire off his Wasteland, and then Ben will be able to make his combo in response to that Wasteland. So Wasteland on both sides of the board, extremely important. And we'll see how this goes. I believe Ben is going to be running some number of Life Malomes. That's typical with Slow Depths. Basically, you can recur and play a little bit like lands, recurring effects like Wasteland, but of course also dredging toward your combo and eventually creating an inevitable situation where you will end up with a 20/20 unless your opponent beats you, which of course is what Blue-Red Delver is going to look to do. Going to try and put early pressure. Cards like Delver of Secrets, Monastery Mentor, backed up with Burn. A lot of variants on Delver right now in the meta. Grixis Delver may very well be the best deck, but Blue-Red gets to run basic lands, a little bit lower to the ground, really aggressive, and has Price of Progress potentially as a pretty powerful trump versus control strategies, and even decks here like Slow Depths. Going to run a lot of non-basics and potentially need to get a lot of them on board. 2 mana for 8 damage or more certainly ends games in a hurry. As you see here, this is actually the finals of the first Fast Effect filmed here at the new ELD's Time Vault Games in Bellingham, Mass. Basic Island for Tony going into Delver, just where he wants to be. Mox Diamond on Ben's side, ditching Thespian stage. The redundant Thespian stage goes to the bin to enable a little bit of acceleration and have the right color mana for this Thoughtseize. And seeing what looks like Spell Snare, Spell Pierce, perhaps Snapcaster Mage or Brainstorm. I think that's a Brainstorm going to the bin. Ben wants to keep the correct information at all times there. Brainstorm can potentially draw into all sorts of problems. And now this Wasteland on the other side for Tony, potentially going to protect. That Sylvan Safekeeper showing up as a potential blocker for a very brief window as Delver flips to that Daze on top of the library, now swinging in for 3 a turn. So it looks like 7 damage off of Ben, 4 from Thoughtseizes, and Young Pyromancer going to the graveyard, still with a fistful of counters. Safekeeper comes back. Almost certainly not going to matter. Life's going to be coming off in chunks of 20 at a time if things are working well for Ben. Bojuka Bog coming into play tapped, exiling Tony's graveyard. Most likely no interaction with his graveyard except for perhaps Snapcaster Mage. Dark Depths, and here we go. The combo has been assembled. Wasteland, the only thing that's stopping it. Can Ben find a Wasteland? And he's just firing it off, plowing forward. Oh, and Ben doing a little bit of a check there to see if Tony actually knew the interaction. Many players will just Wasteland in response. Tony, very familiar with how that works, so he does get the 2-for-1. A bit of a gamble there for Ben. Up a game, perhaps hoping Tony would make the mistake and he'd be able to recoup. And here is Dark Confidant. This could threaten to pull him back into the game, but there's not a lot of life left on his side. Thespian Stage, that's one part. Oh, and that is brutal. Thespian Stage, another important card in the matchup. He could have potentially copied Tony's Wasteland with the Thespian Stage. So that is another element to consider in the matchup. If your opponent does have a Wasteland, you can use your Thespian Stage to an excess Thespian Stage to copy their Wasteland, and then assemble your combo on a later turn. You basically have to keep your Dark Depths in hand if you're making that play, because if you don't have enough mana, then they could fire off their Wasteland and just take out the Dark Depths. Of course, that's not a 2-for-1, so that may actually be something that's acceptable depending on the quality of your hand and the type of clock that you're facing. So we're all tied up here going into game 3. Looks like they will be using the life totals here. Hopefully we'll have a clearer picture here of exactly how much pressure Tony is putting, because that will be necessary to get Dark Depths out of there. You cannot give them all day, and you do not want to sit behind a fistful of counters. Their combo doesn't even have to use spells at all, so very, very difficult to try and control them with blue permission. There are times where it can hit things like Vampire, Hexmage, or Sylvan Scrying and kind of deny them their easy assembly, but very often they just naturally draw that combo. So you're going to want Wasteland, or perhaps something like Vapor Snag. We got a mull. The 6, still using the current mulligan rules. There's a bunch of hype about the new London mulligan. Let me know what you think about that in the comments if you've heard about it. They're going to be drawing 7 on each mulligan step at Magic Fest London. And then putting a card on the bottom for each time that you've mulliganed. And here we go, Brainstorm, and perhaps just a fistful of lands off of this Thoughtseize. But we've got 2 Wastelands from Tony, which is an awful lot to play through here for Slow Depths. Ben going to have a tough time. Now, he did drop Wasteland on the first turn, meaning that he was not able to Brainstorm, so that Thoughtseize got the best of it. And now Sylvan Scrying for Ben. That is a big problem for this matchup. The card selection is going to be very, very important. And at this stage, it looks like, I mean, Tony's going to need to get some type of threat down, or that Sylvan could actually start paying a little bit of life even, just to wrap this up in a hurry. And Brainstorm. Very helpful digging, but it is not an onboard threat. Brainstorm plus fetch, so Tony has assembled the best combo in the game. We'll see if he uses it to protect anything on top of his library, or if he's just going to be shuffling away the 2 worst cards in a second. And he thinks twice. And does, in fact, fetch during his upkeep. Got a bunch of blue mana so far. 2 islands. We'll see if he fetches a mountain. If he does, I think very likely that he's playing to draw into Price of Progress and being concerned about his life total. I think he can afford to get a dual land, in my opinion. Then with a couple of basics. So Price of Progress actually not going to be hugely devastating if it does come into play at this point. Just kind of be a fair spell. Doing 4 damage for 2 is fine. And Ben managing to take a decent amount of damage here so far. Actually, not sure how he's at 13. If he did keep a card off of Sylvan, I believe he should be at 12. And here we go, Snapcaster, Brainstorm. Tony thinking this through here. Looks like we have a young Pyromancer in hand. Has, in fact, stuck with all basics. It looks like Ben's Wasteland showing up. I don't know if it's good or bad. It's interesting. That Wasteland is probably at its best destroying Tony's Wasteland. I'd almost prefer to bait out the use of it against my mana. See what he does. A Grim Lavamancer. So more use of the graveyard here. Looks like both Snapcaster and Grim can use that graveyard as a resource. So even though there are no Gurmags. Oh, and it looks like another Wasteland and passing. And a 2-for-1 with Wasteland already. I'm trying to think of a great reason to do that now. I am not coming up with one. Feels like you could wait your time. See how this goes. Snapcaster, not the fastest clock. Do we have any burn in Tony's hand to kind of extend the reach? Young Pyromancer. That does threaten to turn it into most likely just a 2-turn clock. And Abrupt Decay is being fired off here. So will Tony be able to get any value out of this? Tony wastelands the Thespian stage and is now playing Surgical on it to get a token. At 9. I'm going to go ahead and search now. Looks like he may have had a Spell Pierce in his hand that he could have also fired off here if he wanted an extra token. Right now it's a 3-turn clock. One more token pretty much keeps it at a 3-turn clock. So perhaps not worth it unless you could get to 5 damage on board. Now Ben only has one card in hand, so it is a consideration to turn some of those excess counters into additional board presence. But it looks like he's going to play the most conservative role here. One thing I really don't like about that surgical line is getting the shuffle. That is 3 fresh cards on top. And there's a Thoughtseize going to 7. And we have Spell Pierce, Daze, Force. Might be 2 Spell Pierces? 2 different arts, perhaps? A couple of Spell Pierces and a Daze. This is the turn here, in all likelihood. If Ben plays anything that can be countered, more tokens will arrive, and that is it. Ben calling it there, and Tony taking it down in 3. That's all for this one. If you enjoyed the video, please help grow the channel by subscribing. You'll be notified when we upload new videos like Fast Effect, Double Speed Magic with commentary, or Untapped, our raw tournament gameplay. Thanks for watching.